FM Lagos. All right, you can catch the visuals live on YouTube. Leave us a comment on Twitter. Tweet us at Smooth981FM as we bring you some major headlines across our national dailies today. Let's begin with this headline in from the Punch newspaper. Doctors decided to strike this Sunday, begin advocacy visits. Now, the federal government commenced discussions with the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors over the demands the doctors had put forward. And the doctors are saying that 2 weeks ultimatum issued on the 30th of July perhaps will elapse, and it expires on Sunday. They might go on strike. Cheta, bring us up to speed with this very information.
Uh, I don't know. It's just a very sad bit of commentary on where we are. They never pay lecturers. Lecturers, they one corner, they cry. Now doctors want join strike. I mean, what direction are we going? And the reason for this is that the FG has not met any single agreement that they made since the last strike. Remember that doctors last went on strike last year, was it? Yeah, it was last year. And an agreement was signed to call them off. To make them call off the strike. People like us will be looking at this and saying, oh, you don't plan to meet any agreement, so why should we call off our strike? It's just a sad state of affairs. Starts commentary on where we are as a country. Our governments cannot be trusted to keep its word. So, well, I mean, we're going to see labor breakdowns, continuous labor breakdowns.
Isn't it because the country is broke? We keep hearing continually from the
The
federal
country is
government,
not
we
broke.
don't
The
have
country is
money.
bankrupt. The country is
Yeah,
not broke. See, let's move
but
on
we
from
keep
that. See,
borrowing.
we still have other stories that we talk about this one. So let's just move on because it's a depressing way to start a Friday. People used to do feel good Friday before. I mean, why? In short, when we finish, we'll go and knock the producer upside the head.
All
Which
right.
is supposed to be feel good stories today.
Okay, let's look at this one from Daily Post. Imo community protest abandonment, demand 50% of 70 billion naira oil tax money paid by oil companies. These are elders from Egbema community in Imo State. What's your reaction to this?
Again, another non-feel good story on a Friday. And it's Hope Uzodinma, the illegitimate governor of Imo, that they are directly targeting with this. Personally, I think we should watch this one very carefully. As Igbo people will say, on why if you John Ebido. Basically, the community is making demands peacefully right now. But one day they will realize that no one is listening, and then the hot heads among them will pick up guns and we'll have yet another stress point in the country. This has happened, rinse and repeat so many times in this country. Money is being owed or money is paid as taxes, and you find that the oil companies themselves, especially the multinational oil companies, have actually paid. So somewhere in between the line, that money does not reach the intended recipients. It gets packaged somewhere, and then later on it causes problems. I'll give an example. Back in 2001, the community of Ivrin in around near Ugeli in Delta State beheaded their traditional ruler because they found out that the traditional ruler had been collecting monies paid ostensibly for the community by Shell, or to the community by Shell. He had been collecting it and they were not seeing it. This is the same ballpark. The difference is that this time they are directly accusing the governor of being the one doing it. And it's the
Okay.
federal government has paid Imo State 70 billion naira as share of the taxes paid by oil companies operating in the state. So the oil companies have paid. The federal government has remitted its bits. It's at the states that the money has disappeared.
Now, the state government in Imo State Rightly so, oil companies operating in Ohaji, Egbema, and Oguta local governments have paid these 70 billion naira to the federal government, which have in turn remitted to Imo State. But the state government in Imo say they are using these taxes to fix the roads for road constructions. And of course, you know that the oil companies paying these taxes want these roads to be
If
fixed.
you've
Just a
been to
moment,
that
Cheta.
area,
But
wait, wait, wait.
the communities are saying give us 50% of this 70 billion that they want to use to fix roads.
Again, it's a red herring. There's a reason why the communities are screaming. So I haven't been along that road for about 2 years now. But I can tell you that the roads in that area have always been very poor. And perhaps given what I will commit to do is I will actually make some calls. I know people who stay not too far to find out if the roads are being done. But having said that, this speaks to the level of mistrust of government motives, because it is not the first time it is happening. Governments will say, oh, we are going to do this, and then it will not happen. And it brings us to something that we need to start talking about a lot more, which is we need to start looking more at the state governments. Not to remove any focus from Abuja, but we need to start. A lot of nonsense happens at state government level. There are certain things that are the pure remit of the states: basic education, primary health care. These things, they don't get done, and everybody's busy looking at Abuja. We need to actually start putting more pressure on the states.
All right, from that, let's look at the Punch newspaper now, where Malami, that's the AGF, and
Our favorite
NGF,
lawyer,
and the Nigeria Governors Forum on collision costs over $418 million deductions. This is, Tarrif fund, from the Tarrif fund. In fact, I recall that the attorney generals in March this year, attorney generals from the 36 states appealed the judgment, seeking to restrain the federal government from effecting planned deductions from these funds. And now we're hearing the AGF saying, oh, he's going to go ahead.
You get a wise chest. See, there is this thing. This thing is already before the courts, and it's shocking that somebody who is supposed to be the most senior lawyer in the government doesn't know that you can't be making statements like that when this thing is already in courts. Malami is a disgrace to the legal profession. Any way you look at it, yes, unarguable. And every time there is something like this about sharing money in this government, his name always tends to pop up. We need to ask why. Now, having said that, we need to look at this case just beyond just Nigeria's political elite squabbling for money as usual. Cases of Nigerian government officials pushing proposals that undermine the rule of law and the economic well-being of people, all for personal benefits, are not rare. So you get the key difference in my point of view is that in this case, the Nigerian Governors Forum is also a very powerful body that can oppose the federal government, and elections are coming. Everybody knows that for you to make some form of electoral progress, you need the governors on side. As we speak, like I said earlier, the states are in courts seeking to review this. They are also seeking to review things like VATs. They're in opposition to the central revenue collection mechanism that is the federal government leads. This is just another battlefield in the war of devolution. And one thing that we see is that where the interests of state governors are clear, they know how to use the instruments of law and due process to tackle overzealous officials such as Malami. What this means, the implication of that is that when state governors fail to move on an issue, you can basically say that it's not for lack of knowledge, but that they don't see it as priority and they've deliberately chosen not to act. So brings us back to what I talked about in the Imo story. We have to start putting more pressure on state governments. Just yesterday, Budget released a graphic about how many states are owing salaries, and it's disgraceful. Pretty much every state in the south, and southeast are owing salaries. That is very disgraceful. Now, having ranted against the state governors on this matter, the state governors are spot on. That's just the truth.
Mm.
Malami has repeatedly attempted to get these monies out for these 4 contractors, despite several pronouncements by courts of law, and litigation that is still ongoing. It's still ongoing. This is just, I mean, the guy is just displaying disdain for the rule of law. And it's tragic that that's the chief law officer of the country displaying that kind of disdain for rule of law. Is there any sensible reason that Malami is insisting on rushing through this matter before Buhari leaves office? Is there any other sensible reason aside from what has been alleged that he's going to get a cut? What is the hurry? Wait for the court to finish this thing conclusively and then abide by whatever judgment they bring.
No, but he was saying the state governors had no rights to complain about the deductions. Which
the thing is in law. It's in the courts. Wait for the courts to finish.
Just a moment, Cheta. He's saying that the state governors hired these consultants and the consultants have not been paid. So he wants to deduct this money as source.
Have not been paid. Doctors have not been paid. Pay them first. Why is it this particular one that he's insisting they must pay? They must pay. Either courts, make courts finish. Let's courts rule.
All right, we'll get to the messages in a moment, but quickly, let's look at this one from the Punch newspaper still. Wike sues Atiku and Tambuwal, demands recognition as candidate. And Wike and a PDP chieftain, Ekamo, are listed as plaintiffs in a suit. In the originating summons, the PDP is listed as the first respondents, while INEC is the second. Atiku and Tambuwal listed as third and fourth respondents, respectively. Now, the PDP presidential primary, during the primary, aspirants were asked to address delegates. Tambuwal had asked them to vote for him, only to return moments later to ask them to vote for Atiku. And I wonder why this case has been taken to court.
I see they pain them now, so they sweet us.
I didn't see that coming.
I see they sweet us. No, this particular campaign season is clearly going to generate a lot of catchy tunes. I mean, we are going to have a lot of catchy tunes. As an aside, that's tune that they used for this Emilokon song. Can somebody help me with the original song? That's because I keep trying to remember it at the back of my head somewhere. Yes, it's the Emilokon song that keeps coming up, especially after I saw that Pirates video. Anyway, to the substance of this thing. From my own non-learned point of view, so let me start with my own non-learned point of view. For the record, I spoke with a lawyer about this, but from my own non-learned point of view, this is Wike throwing his toys out of the pram. He has lost out on all fronts and is facing political irrelevance after he leaves office in less than a year. So he's trying very hard to get a deal. But I think that he's negotiating from a position of weakness, and this tantrum that he's throwing may very well cost his party. That's my own view.
Sorry.
Yeah. Having said all of that, I spoke with a lawyer friend, and he said that based on the Electoral Act, Wike probably has a point, and that there's a chance that this case could go all the way up the legal chain, because Tambuwal stepping down essentially while vote counting had started. I'm using the language he used, essentially while vote counting has started, and transferring already pledged votes to Atiku ought to have been done before the convention and not during. This is what a lawyer told me. And I'm not going to question his law school certificates. The guy has done well for himself. If what he said is correct, then the implication of this is that as a level last Wike's tantrums would cause instability in PDP and probably hands the APC a huge advantage going into the polls. So that's where it is. Tantrum, yes, but does he have a case? According to Cheta, who has not a minute of experience in law school, he doesn't have a case. It's a frivolous suit, but according to a lawyer, there's a case there.
So putting this in simple terms, Wike is going to court suing the PDP, INEC, Atiku, and Tambuwal because Tambuwal transferred his votes to Atiku.
During
and
the
Wike is saying it's illegal and void. So now we need a court to determine this.
That's it. Yes.
Shouldn't he work for his party as a party man? He had pledged before the elections that whatever the outcome is, I stand by the party's decision. Why all of this
You
at
see,
this time?
there's a reason why you are just sitting, that we are just sitting together in a studio and talking about what people like that do. Well, and then the people like that are in power. They know the games that they play. Like I said earlier, this man is facing political irrelevance after the election. Think of how Ahmed Lawan and Godswill Akpabio have tried very desperately to fight to get back into the Senate. Nigeria's political elite, they don't want to smell, the thing they are most afraid of is becoming floor members of society after they leave office, which is why there's always that rush to remain in office, remain relevant one way or the other. Wike is not running for Senate. Whether Atiku wins or whether Tinubu wins, or in the far shots of Peter Obi winning, any of them, I don't see a position for Wike in any of their governments. You understand?
No,
so
but if he doesn't
have, again, what is he bringing to the table?
Votes from his state.
Please. There are so many people who are angry with him in Rivers. And if you notice the body language, watch Rivers State politics very carefully. Wike is in that sort of lame duck phase where people are slowly, subtly distancing themselves from him. And that's what he's saying that is making him throw his toys out of the pram. Basically, the bottom line of all of this, from the point of view of Rivers people, is Rivers State has unfortunately been cursed with governors so far who end up taking the state's considerable resources for quixotic federal endeavors.
All right, Cheta. Let's look through some of the messages that have come in so far. Kazim is saying, Victor is flattering a skeptic. Which kind of response you expect from Cheta before? But you're not wrong. He's one of the finest out of Africa. There you go. Let's look through some of the messages. Linda in Yaba.
My head is like 4 times the size right now.
The only people that get paid and permit their payments in our country are political officers. On Malami, I think he is the one running Nigeria, not just state governments, but local governments too. Dakbolawal is also agreeing to what you had said earlier. Idima Puza from Surulere is saying, for how long would government allow herders and farmers clashes to linger, leading to deaths and scarcity of foodstuffs? Why not resort to ranching rather than allowing herders move all over the country, destroying farm crops? Is this message for us? Going on, I agree with you. The AG Malami is a monumental disgrace to the hallowed profession. I wonder how he earned his senior advocate position. That's from Barrister Dan in Igondo. Why won't Malami behave like this? He married a younger new wife and the president's daughter for that matter, Austin from Satellite. Can we focus on the issues? Well, when Atiku no go see, waiting Atiku no go see for Wike hand, Saken is asking. Dami from Ikeja, it is time the Nigerian Bar Association look at the role of the current Attorney General and the other lawyers in this current administration. They are undermining the rule of law. All the news this morning is looking like a comedy show, and with Cheta, pay the pensioners, doctors, and teachers first before you pay consultants from Paris Fund. Can PDP NWC overrule the PDP constitution that has zoning enshrined in it? Wike may have a case. Alex from VI. And we'll take one more, then we'll get to the messages. I agree with you on the Imo matter. Ogu Ikbele, a community in Anambra, is going through hell. An oil company is currently drilling oil and move it across the Delta State without anyone doing anything for the community. No road, no school, no light, nothing for the people. To shock you, a prince of this community, Chu Onyema, is a member of the House of Reps for years. Anambra State and the federal government are not doing anything. Nero Cello from Ogudu sent that message across to us. All right, let's keep it going to our next story this morning. By the way, you can send your messages to us on 0809-444-0981. This story in from Daily Post. Nigerian government vows not to interfere in Ekweremadu's organ harvesting case in the UK. What's your reaction to that?
I mean, by vowing not to interfere, they've already interfered in some ways.
It's the same Malami speaking. It says that the government of Nigeria will not interfere in the legal battle.
See, is this simple? By not by already sending delegation of senators and all the rest to attend, they've already interfered. The story is generally boring. The Nigerian elite protect its own, and when one of them is in trouble, they will go all lengths to do what they can. Malami is simply speaking because they know that they cannot directly interfere with the court process in the UK. Here is what is going to happen. Ekweremadu is not going to go down for organ harvesting, as it has been proven in court that the man who he moved is old enough to have given consent. So that's not that's not illegal organ harvesting. But he's almost definitely certain to go down for modern day slavery, which is a UK thing that deals with things like power distance. And power distance is something that is a concept that Nigerians simply don't get. And Ekweremadu meeting that young man, and I mean, I'm embarrassed that I don't remember the young man's name, despite having read it so many times, but that's a classical example of power distance. The man is irrelevant in the scheme of things. Then a lord of the land, like Ekweremadu, approaches him and asks for something. The probability that he will say no is like 999,999 times out of 1 million that he will say yes. That's called power distance. And power distance is what brings about modern day slavery. Ekweremadu is almost definitely going to go down for that. And when a judgment and sentence are passed, a deal will be made between Nigeria and the UK to repatriate him. That's what's likely to happen.
All right. Let's look at this one from Vanguard. El Rufai writes, Buhari says terrorist creating parallel government in Kaduna.
For this one, I wish I could do one of these catchy tunes that so many Nigerians seem to. Maybe this is why I was kicked out of Kegites back in Uniben, because I couldn't compose songs. See, for me, there's a bit of Schadenfreude in this, because I mean, in this very chair, and many times on social media, I had talked about the deteriorating security, not just in Kaduna, but in Northwest in general, and the fact that I kept using the expression ungoverned species. We are ceding territory to these groups. And every time I said so, a whole horde of people would come to attack me, call me all sorts of names, even messages that came through on in this very station. You know, now we are seeing it. Now, the very governor who on the 2nd of July 2021 said, and I quote, "The bandits are just businessmen who pose no threats to the security of the country." Now he's the one who is saying, who is crying, oh, they are setting up a parallel government. This. You know the truth. The horse has bolted and the stable is locked. El Rufai deserves no sympathy. However, and this is one of those things where it gets very complicated, the people deserve all the sympathy and international attention that could be gotten, because what is happening is a new state, especially Ansaru, a new state is forming around, and my organization made a video a few years ago asking, who is Ansaru? Because Ansaru are a group that have flown under the radar. Everybody remembers Boko Haram. Everybody remembers ISWAP. Everybody remembers JAS and all of that. But Ansaru is just there silently creating facts on the ground under the radar. Ansaru, who for the record pledged loyalty to the Islamic State at a point, are most likely the people who were responsible for the Owo attack. Ansaru, unlike the JAS faction of Boko Haram, which could be said to have been largely a Kanuri group, or some of the groups in the Northwest, which could be said to be either Hausa or Fulani groups. Ansaro is a group that is truly multi-ethnic. That makes it most dangerous. It has a lot of cells in Kogi State. Kogi State shares boundaries with 9 other states and Abuja, which provides it a solid back operating base where they can easily strike somewhere and then disappear.
Just a lot to talk about on this same matter, but we need to, move on because of time. I just want to throw this in. Wouldn't it be so much of an enormous task for the next president of Nigeria, whoever emerges in 2023, to ensure that we begin to retrieve, some of these states where, quote unquote, parallel government by terrorists and enemy of the states?
It's a huge task. I fear that it may have even reached a point where we may actually have to negotiate with some of these people and have concessions from them.
Just a message again before we kick things going. Idowu is trying to remind you. He says, Cheta, the song is for you. Renew me, Father, renew me, oh Lord. We used to sing it at St. Albert's in Uniben. So do you remember the song now?
Thank you, Idowu. I remember now. Yeah.
All right. Sam is saying, can you tell the president to please leave Nigerians alone? As far as I'm concerned, there is no rule of law in these governments. Stomach infrastructure is the order of the day. Sam from Ota sends that in. Wike is now in the unique position of being a problem for everyone in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, Nigeria, and most enviably himself. That's Tonye from Magodo that sends that message in. We'll take this story perhaps as our final story for today. Federal government to implement 5% tariff hike on calls and data. Now, the Minister of Finance says the government will go ahead with the tariff hike, and despite resistance from the Minister of Communications, Professor Issa Pantami.
Dr. Issa Pantami.
Okay. Pantami, the Communications Minister.
Yeah, his so-called professorship. I mean, it's clear, and it has been proven that it was unethically purchased from Futo. So it's going to be rescinded, and I think ASU has called for it to be rescinded. It's going to be rescinded. So let's not jump for the man because he's in government. Anyway, let's go to the story. This story may seem short. I mean, the Nation gave its words just about less than 50 words, as it were. But it's a very important milestone in the rush towards financial meltdown. Basically, we've run out of financial runway as a country, and the government is desperately seeking any way to plug the gap. So they are going to be raising all sorts of taxes. Prepare for all sorts, and prepare for more predatory behavior from revenue collecting agencies. My problem is, so I don't have a problem with the fact that, I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is. Nigeria has run out of funds, and whether the money was not used judiciously or not is irrelevant. We need to raise money to continue to even function, no matter how little the function. My problem is that the political class itself has yet to change its ways. So essentially, what they're telling us, the message they're telling us, that we should fund their lavish lifestyles. I find it interesting that Issa Pantami is the one opposing this, despite his dodgy past. I think that what is happening is enlightened self-interest on his part. He's seen that shifting more and more of the burden to Nigerians without his class changing their ways can only have one possible outcome, and it's not good for them.
All right, thank you very much, Cheta. Just before we go, we look at some messages on WhatsApp. My happiness in all this is that Wike lost in all fronts. He thought himself a god. Daniel Okoye, that one came in from him. This government with tax, the very hair we breathe, the very air we breathe, I believe, is what Sam wanted to send to us. This government will tax the air we breathe soon enough. And my question has always been, why don't we expand the tax bracket other than impose new tariffs and taxes on Nigerians?
Laziness, that's the answer.
Thank you very much, Cheta, for being a part of the show today. You can catch him on Twitter. It's Chexta, CHXTA. And boy, he's got quite a number of followers on that platform. You too can be part of it. And do follow us, Smooth 981 FM. I'm at Victor Peppu. Let's do this again on Monday at 7:30. Good morning. Thank you so much, Cheta.
No wahala. No wahala. All right. Can we log off now?
Yes, we can. Thank you
All
so
right
much.
then. Cheers.